Hello, this is BJ. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Read It Again. As you can see right now, I am outside on the roof of the guest house I am staying in. And as you can see here, this roof is flat. And I'm going to go ahead and put this down now. This roof is flat, and most buildings in Bethlehem, the roofs are flat, and they are built in a fairly box-like structure. As you can see behind me, this building here is the educational center for Bethlehem Bible College, and I'm going to turn this again. This building here is the office administration building for Bethlehem Bible College, and I'm standing on the roof of the guest house for Bethlehem Bible College. And as I said, most of the roofs are flat. They are box-like structures. Every building in Bethlehem, most every building in Bethlehem are built with flat roofs. This is true today. It was also true in the time of Jesus, and probably much further back than that. There's not a need of worry of a lot of rain collecting on the roofs, and there's not a worry of a lot of snow building up and destroying the roofs like there would be in many parts of America. So it's actually much more convenient to build a flat structure. Many houses, especially in Jesus' time, not as much today, but many of the buildings, they would be one floor or possibly two floor buildings, but then they'd have a flat roof with a larger wall. The wall here is only probably about 2, maybe 3 feet high, but many of the buildings in Jesus' time would have had a larger wall, probably about 4 or 5 feet high. And then, so there'd be multiple rooms underneath, and then one large flat surface as a roof that would also double as a guest house. It would be a flat building with a slightly higher wall for privacy's sake, but also then you could put like a tent above it. So if someone is coming to stay at your house, or if someone is coming to stay at a guest house, they would be able to live on that upper floor for as long as they were staying in there. Jesus, when he celebrated the Last Supper with his disciples, or when he would come to the Jerusalem for any of the festivals, he would stay in a room like that. It would be one large flat room that could hold 12, 13, 14 people, in large enough to have for them to be comfortable and have a meal there. In fact, when there was 100 disciples gathered together in the upper room in Jerusalem, that would have been a walled structure, probably without a roof, possibly with a tent, for a very large building, because 100 people were there together. And that's why when the Spirit fell on them, people around them would notice, because it's not an enclosed building. It was not an enclosed room that they were in. It would be an open room. So people in other larger buildings around them would be able to see what's going on. And that's why the crowd was wondering what was happening at Pentecost. Also, these flat roofs, how they were built, they would be basically large rocks. And I'm going to show a picture here taken from Masada, where they show the different layers as they rebuilt some of it, so you can get an idea of what it would look like. But there would be larger rocks and then small rocks in between, and dirt and small rocks and sand as a covering to fill in the cracks between the larger rocks, and then that would be plastered over. Same thing would happen for the roof, so that if someone was coming up onto your roof, if they really wanted to damage your building, a few well-placed kicks in the right spot would break that plaster. They'd be able to pull up some of the plaster, dig around some of the smaller rocks, and then 3 or 4 guys together might be able to pick up and move some of those larger rocks. So if someone wanted to lower someone through the roof of a building, it's not really that hard to do, and it's not permanent destruction to the building. There'd be some repairs that would be made, but it's not like completely destroying the building to lower someone through the roof of a building, as happened when Jesus healed the paralytic. Also, in Bethlehem, when Mary and Joseph came to stay in, they said there was no room in the inn. The actual, more accurate phrasing would be there was no appropriate place in the guest house. That would be more a reading of the meaning of what is being said. There's no room in the inn. There's really a guest house, and there's no room, meaning it's not a good place for a woman to give birth, because these guest house, Bethlehem would have been a very small village, only maybe a dozen buildings or so. Many people were coming in. All of those roofs of all of the buildings would have been incredibly crowded. So it would not have been a good place, a convenient place for a woman that's in labor to be around many other people. So when the innkeeper gave her the manger to stay in, or gave her that, It was really more of like an attached garage. I'll explain that maybe in a different post, but really he was doing something that was a good, a kind-hearted, convenient thing for her. Instead of just sticking her up with everyone else, he gave her a part of his home. So the innkeeper wasn't the evil villain that we many times in our Christmas plays portray him as, but he was actually being very generous and very kind and giving her a place that would be private and set apart and separate from the others. Anyways, I am here for my summer book haul, and I have 32 books that over the course of the last couple months I have collected or I've gathered. 5 of these are hard copy, and for me 5 hard copy books is a very large number. Hopefully all of these, after I've read them, I would like to give them away to someone else, pass those along. I don't like to keep hardcover books because I do travel a lot, and my home very likely is going to be changing. Once I go back to Gaziantep, I will be living in a different apartment than where I'm at for economic reasons. Anyway, so I do have 5 hardcover copy books. Why I purchased these and how I purchased these, I actually was working at a summer camp, and when that ended, they very generously and a surprise to me gave me a small gratuity in additional room and board, which is what I thought I was working for. They actually did give me a small amount of money, and so I turned around and went up to their bookstore and picked out what I thought would be the 5 best books in their bookstore, and hopefully I'll do a video of the bookstore before I leave here so you can see some of the other things that are available. But I picked up 5 books there. The first of these books is The Other Side of the Wall, a Palestinian narrative of lament and hope. This is by Munther Isaac. He's one of the professors here. He's also actually the academic dean. He's also the pastor of, lovely string. He's also the pastor of the the Christmas Evangelical Lutheran Church here in Bethlehem. So this book really, he's talking about his experience and a theological understanding of lament and lament and hope. Yeah, it's exactly what it says. But he's talking about the Palestinian perspective of what is going on in the Holy Land, and the Christian, a biblical perspective from a Palestinian point of view of what Israel is doing and the apartheid that is happening here. So that is that by Munther Isaac. Another professor, Through My Enemy's Eyes. This professor wrote this along with a Jewish theologian. The 2 books together, actually I believe it's a Jewish Christian theologian along with a Palestinian Christian, they wrote Through My Enemy's Eyes. So they took at various topics that deal with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and what's going on, and they're sharing the Jewish and Palestinian perspective together. I love books like this where you're seeing 2 different sides of a narrative, but done constructively. Instead of just kind of criticizing each other or bashing each other, they're constructively sharing 2 different opinions. And so that's Through My Enemy's Eyes. The third book, Palestinian Memories. This is by Alex Awad. Alex Awad is the brother of Bashar Awad, the founder of this college, and Yet in the Dark Street Shining, that I did read and I'll talk about later. But that brother, he is writing about his mother's experience. So Bashar Awad's mother's experience. And from what I've read of the mother so far is absolutely amazing. So I can't wait to get to this and hear her perspective on that life. The next is Christ at the Checkpoint. And this is actually, Christ at the Checkpoint is a collection of various theologians that come to deal with or address I think it's once every 2 years they will come together and discuss what is happening in Palestine and what can be done about it from a Christian perspective. And this is a collection of essays that came out of the most recent Christ at the Checkpoint. Again, Munther Isaac, who wrote the first book I talked about, is one of the co-editors with that, along with Manfred Cole. So this is actually a collection of essays. Usually for those, there are going to be some that are very good. There are going to be some that I'm not a big fan of. But there's that. And then finally, there's A Land Full of God, edited by Elise Cannon. And this is American Christians' opportunity to promote peace and justice in the Palestinian conflict. That's the very first line of the bylaw in the back. So those are the books that I got from the bookstore here. They're all dealing with the Palestinian issue. They're all doing that. So like I said, I started reading one of those already, but hopefully I'll finish all of those in the next couple months. That's very ambitious considering I'm going to be teaching full-time and a student full-time again starting in September. Not looking forward to that. But anyways, those are those books that I got that are hard copy books. I hope to be able to read all of those and then pass them along to other people that I think would read them and enjoy them as well. And then here's my list. I have 27 other books. There's 32 total. I'm going to start with my fiction. I have 2 books of fiction that I've got. The rest of the books that I got are digital downloads. I've got these from various places. NetGalley, Kindle Unlimited. A couple of these I did purchase, and then many of them, they are basically, they're older, they're classics, and so there are many places online that you'd be able to find these and download copies of these. So anyways, the 2 fiction books, 32 books, 2 of them are fiction, gives you an idea of my priorities. But the 2 fiction books, the first of those is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. The second one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And then certain other books that I've gathered from a various different number of places. 2 of these from the first, Return of the God Hypothesis by Stephen Meyer. The second is Resurrection of Jesus by Mike Lacona, who is an excellent apologetic. I have a lot of respect for that man, and his book is going to be an apologetic look at the resurrection of Jesus, and probably one of the best out there. If you can get your hands on anything by Mike Lacona, it'll be heavy reading, but it's very good and very excellent reading. And then probably one of my favorite authors and theologians all time, N.T. Wright, his book, The New Testament in Its World. So again, he's looking at the New Testament from a perspective of the land and the culture of where it was written. Then there's Let the Trumpet Sound. This is a biography of Martin Luther King Jr. by Stephen Oates. The Odyssey and Iliad collection by Homer. Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems by Galileo Galilei. I can't wait to talk about this book because there are so much mythology around Galileo, and it's absolutely garbage. So I can't wait to talk about this book, read it, and then talk about the real history of what really happened. And it's not as bad as most people like to think it is. And then there's the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, something like that. Alexander S. Can't wait to read that. It's a history of basically those that are living in the Gulag during the time of Stalin. Not a fun book, but it'll be a very fun book for me to read. And then there are a group of books that I collected from NetGalley that I was approved for NetGalley. Mastering the Art of Command by Trent Hope. I Am a Christian by Tom Rainer. The Evolution of Charles Darwin by Diana Preston. Streams in a Wasteland by Andrew Arndt. Seeking God by Trevor Hudson. The Mongol Storm by Nicholas Morton. Ending Human Trafficking by Shane Moore. And Outrageous Obedience by Rochelle Starr. I know a little bit about her story already, and I can't wait to read this book. She is a Christian PK, pastor's kid, who, well, I'm probably going to talk about this book later. But anyways, it is a great read, and Outrageous Obedience. You want to read this if you've not. So anyways, See the God by Zach Windle. See the Good by Zach Windle. These are books that I've collected from NetGalley. There's also a few books that I downloaded through Kindle Unlimited. I do have Kindle Unlimited. So, The Old Testament Case by Andrew Flesher. Jesus Loves Canaanites by Randall Rosser. Both of these are books that are looking at trying to come at the mythology that the God of the Old Testament is an angry, wrathful, just God, and then the God of the New Testament is loving and caring and kind. No, it's the same God all the way through. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So they're approaching some of the biggest issues and problems people might have with the Old Testament and really bringing some correction to bad theology on those. And then They Lied About God by R.H. Ben Shalom. From the Cave to the Cross by Bradley Jersak. And this is going to be a look at the theology of Simone Weil, who is one of my favorite philosophers. She really changed my perspective on some things. Jesus, A New Vision by Willie Stryber, and finally Unto Death by Dalton Thomas. And then 3 books that I actually did purchase. One of those I've already finished reading, Yet in the Dark Street Shining. That's the biography of Bashara Awad. And then I talked about already in a previous video, Walking in the Dust of Rabbi Jesus by Louis Dverberg. And then finally, The Critical Quran by Robert Spencer. Very soon, I am probably going to be doing a book review about this. I've not finished it yet. However, I've read the Quran 3 times already. This will be my 4th time reading it through, including Robert Spencer's commentary. So I will be doing that in a video soon. But those are the books that I picked up for the summer. And like I said, there are 30 nonfiction and 2 fictions. It gives you an idea of what my priorities are and what I think reading should be about. Anyways, go read it again.